Good morning, sunshines. So, today we're talking about auditions, the job interview. How do you get cast? There are several things in preparation of auditions that you need to do, but there are also several things that you shouldn't do. And so this is by no means the be-all, end-all. One thing about auditions is they are specific to the play. Obviously, if you're doing crap up tape, you need one character, one figure, maybe. Your interpretation, maybe you have 5 different craps. I don't know. Maybe you have crap at 21, at 31, at, whatever. But that's your interpretation. But most productions are going to have one crap, and so typically, crap being an 81-year-old man, you wouldn't need any women. But maybe you're going to have an interpretation where you actually see his lovers and the people singing around him. I don't know. But you have to go through the audition, go through the play, do your analysis, figure out the characters you may need. One of the things about auditions is that you need to work, not only have developed a good idea of the interpretation that you're going to go through, but you probably have gone through a couple production meetings where you've begun to discuss with the designers at a production meeting the interpretation you're going to have, the concept for the play, yes? Where you're setting the play, the physicality of the play, that type of thing. And so you want to make sure that once you've sort of guided that may guide some of your future choices in the auditions. And so you want to leave that as open as you can until you start solidifying things with the auditions. Because I'm going to tell you, the auditions, once you've got the show cast, you're 75% in stone. Maybe more than that. But I'm going to say a good 75% of the show is determined because the actors you have chosen have limitations. Doesn't matter who the actor is. There are things they can do and then things they can't do, right? I can do a lot of things. I can't hit a high C. If your interpretation was that this character was going to sing a high C, you have cast the wrong person. But I can hit a low D. So if your interpretation is hitting the low D, I'm the guy. Yes, so suddenly you can do that. So again, having some idea of what you're looking for is always a good thing. We'll watch a little video here, begin the process. This is a man who, Coconut Grove Playhouse, the head of the Coconut Grove, just talking quickly about preparations for auditions and how he works with his auditions. Enjoy.
On behalf of TVLessonDotCom, my name is Joseph Adler, and I'm producing artistic director of Gable Stage in Coral Gables, Florida. Let's talk a little about how to cast actors. This is obviously one of the most important aspects of directing, and frankly, I get as nervous as the actors do at times because I think it's so crucial that you make the right decision. And sometimes that's not easy. I think obviously this process is crucial to an actor, and the actor that wants to be successful in this business has to learn how to audition successfully. So this whole process, which has now evolved largely into an affair that involves a video camera. When I started in the business, there was no video camera, so they didn't use them as a tool in the classroom for actors, and we didn't use them in casting. So we met people firsthand. We had them come face to face. Too often now you're auditioning on tape, and then someone views the tape and narrows the field down, and then perhaps you get to meet the person that you're auditioning for. Now, I'm one of those people. I'm a holdout. Perhaps I'm a reactionary in this sense because I like the old way better than tape. I'm not one who thinks that video cameras help in the teaching of acting either. I think acting is about losing your self, not being aware. Dancers learn to dance looking in a mirror. Actors don't learn to act by looking at themselves. And I think sometimes that can be detrimental. So I don't understand all these classes that utilize cameras, although it's here and it's certainly here to stay. So I think the fundamental thing about casting, from my standpoint as a director, is to know what it is you're looking for, but to stay open to the possibility that somebody may come along who doesn't fit the bill at all and isn't anything like what you thought you were looking for, and who turns out to be right. This is why, by the way, I think it's important to go out on a casting if you get the opportunity, even if you think it's not a role you're necessarily right for. Headshots are crucial to the whole process of auditioning and getting a role. headshots and resumes. And I think it's incumbent upon actors to use the right form for their resumes and to get the right headshot. Sometimes I think it's advisable to share the potential headshots with directors and other people in the field to let them help you pick the shot you want to use. Sometimes they know better what shots are going to represent you best. But picking the right headshots is obviously essential. I think it's crucial that actors prepare the right monologues when that's the thing they're coming in to do. I think that picking age-appropriate monologues is very important, and I think having 3 or 4 monologues ready at any given time, so that if someone asks you to perform them, you're ready to go with 2 or 3 of them, and one should be contemporary, one should be classic, one should be comedy perhaps, but having 3 ready to go is important. On behalf of TVLesson.com, I'm Joseph Adler. Thank you for watching.
Again, video auditions nowadays are more and more common, especially with COVID. Hopefully we'll be past that soon. But I would say that because of COVID, more people are becoming familiar with the process and accustomed to the process of not only producing the video of the audition, but directors are getting accustomed to casting from videos. I would say directors tend to be on the older side, less technically proficient side. And so I would say there were, up until this year, there has been some reticence in that area of casting shows through videos. Even if you send a video in, a lot of directors would insist that you come to an audition somehow to have an in-person interview. But I think nowadays more and more people are getting more and more adept at those sort of things and more willing to cast from those sort of things. So having a good idea about how to design or how to have someone film your audition is always a great thing to have. But again, that's more a personal thing between you and your videographer about the space, the size, whether you want full body, whether you want, and again, sometimes you want to send that information out in your audition call, yes? Now, first step first, the director and the stage manager should come together and have some sort of idea that they can pass along either in the audition notice or at least at the audition time, a list of the characters in the show and the major points about each character. Mother, father, boyfriend, girlfriend, age range, if that's possible, character type, if you want to say they're the ingenue, if you want to say they're the juvenile's the male lead, young lead, if you want to say they're the comic relief, right? Bottom in Midsummer Night's Dream is definitely should be somebody who can handle comedy, who should just be funny. There are people that are just funny, and it's easier to cast funny people in funny parts because they're funny. Doesn't mean that somebody who isn't funny can't be funny. It's just that you're gonna have less work to do as a director if you find somebody who is funny and you cast them. If you find somebody who is quiet, it's much easier for them to play somebody who is quiet, yes? Because that's close to who they are, right? And you'll find those people, and their roles, actors should be able to find roles. If nothing else, as an actor, let me encourage you, figure out your type. Versus I'm a large fat man. Figure out who you look like, who you resemble. I'm gonna say Brian Dennehy is somebody that I could play, anything Brian Dennehy can play. And so then go look at Brian Dennehy or whoever you feel like you are resemble and or like, and figure out the roles they play. And that'll be a good source not only for audition material, for instance, audition scripts and audition monologues, use something like that, but also will give you a guide to shows you should audition for, right? If, Brian Dennehy played Willie Loman in Death of a Salesman. Could I play Willie? I think so. If it were audition for Death of a Salesman, sure. I'll give it a go. Would I be cast? I don't know. Depends on who else auditioned, right? When we did it, I played Charlie, so it's close enough. His next door neighbor, yes. Fiddler on the Roof, I'd be in line for the fiddler, right? Now, can I sing it? I don't know. I can sing it for an audition, but the person, the director, right? But as an actor, you sort of need to know your type. Who do you most resemble? Now, having said that, let me encourage you to audition no matter what. because it's not for you to decide you're not right for the role. You may open up a director's eyes and say, oh my God, it never occurred to me that this could be a 5 foot tall black woman, right? And suddenly you're like, you're brilliant. And they're like, okay, well, obviously this is a 5 foot tall black woman now, right? The rest of the play will adapt to that, right? Or whatever your situation is, right? So I would encourage you to always audition for everything, let the directors decide. But I would also encourage you to know your type and especially focus on those sort of things. And when you're looking for monologues, look for monologues there. All right. Anyway, on this character description sheet, you should have the character's name, the character's age, range. You want any physical descriptions. You want any like profession. Are they a lawyer? Are they a teacher? Are they an accountant? Are they whatever? Work at McDonald's, whatever. Any character, personality, things you need to be aware of. Big laugh or timid or whatever it is. Whatever the principal plot actions are. If they're the killer, if they've got to carry, if they're a fireman, have to carry somebody. Whatever it is that the character has to do to perform, which might lead to a need for the character to be cast that way. It would be nice to have in there. Whatever the technical demands, the acting demands of the character are, you have to, let's say we're gonna have a set where there's a second level. You might wanna make sure that the actors are not, don't have vertigo, yes? If you've got, if you're taking, for some reason, the play has been designed to happen with a bunch of furs on stage, you might want to ask if anybody had any allergies, especially to whatever furs you're trying to use, yes? Again, depending on where you are in the design process. So those all might be good things to have. You might also have, again, people who are in love with one another, just hints to the characters. Even though anytime you audition, I would encourage the actors to have read the play. As a director and a stage manager, I know that often is not the case. Often is not the case that characters have read, especially in a new play. Especially if you have new work, there's no way they could have read it because it's based on the character description that you have come up with. So again, I would have this character description, the first thing you're gonna produce, I would have it included in any kind of advertisement for the auditions for the show that you're sending out. If you haven't gotten it prepared by then, at least have a full character description for each character available for perusal when the actors arrive at the point where they're going to check in. You might have copies available so that each actor can have their own copy, or just have a call board with a list of characters if that's more convenient. Again, but I would have that prepared before the auditions happen. Yes. Now, at the auditions, there are two basic types of auditions. You need to know which type the director or have chosen as a director, which type you prefer. The first is prepared monologues. Usually, most actors will have prepared a 2-minute monologue, a comic monologue, and a dramatic monologue. Oftentimes, directors will ask for a modern piece as well as a period piece, and you can mix and match those so you can have a period comic monologue and a modern serious, etc. But actors should have those at the drop of a hat. Anybody who's trained in the field should be prepared with those things in their portfolio. Yes. Now, the other type of audition is what's called cold readings. My feeling is, and one of the things as a director, I prefer cold readings. But I also know that people are, dyslexic. People have stutter issues. So it can be unfair to actors, but I think that any good actor worth their salt could be able, and more, will trick you quicker as a director by performing a great 2-minute monologue, but then they can't act their way out of the paper bag. But they've been working on this one 2-minute monologue for 4 years and nailed it perfect. Because of all their acting teachers, and every time they've auditioned, they've had somebody fine tune it and they just got it just right. But then once they get cast in the show, well, they can do that 2-minute monologue again, but can they change or adapt to the character that you're doing? That's why I prefer the cold readings. Now, the problem with cold readings is that as a director, you have to prepare more extensively because you have got to come up with the sides. A side is a cutting from the script, yes? Typically in play productions, when you are, let's say you're doing Romeo and Juliet and you're Mercutio, you would only have Act 1, Act 2, and Act 3 printed because Mercutio, I don't mean to ruin the play for you, but Mercutio dies at the end of Act 3. And so you don't need an Act 4 and Act 5 at Mercutio because you're not in it, you're dead. So that's what a side would be. A side is just your part in the play. But as a director, you're going to need to come up with the sides for the people to audition with, and usually it's best to advertise those ahead of time so that the actors, again, who can prepare or want to prepare, can come in and at least have looked at the scene that they're going to read, cold readings, beforehand, so it's not a really, really cold reading, especially if people have problems with stuttering and or sight problems, whatever problems they may have, they can at least have prepared a bit and understand where you're headed with the cold readings before you arrive. So again, having the sides ready beforehand is helpful. Now, if you have a large number of people, monologues is the way to go. I mean, SETC has 1,000 people audition. There is no way they would survive if they had cold readings. So sometimes you're trapped by the type of environment that you're in. Oftentimes, because of the Fair Hiring Act, because of equal opportunity employment, you can't, according to the government, discriminate on race, sex, all those other things. And so what theaters do to get around it is have what's called cattle call, at which directors typically aren't even there. The stage manager will be there and will collect everyone's resume. The people will come by, drop off a resume. They may even give them a little speech to perform, but 9 times out of 10, it literally is just dropping off the resume, 2 minutes of saying, hey, bye to the stage manager, and you're gone. And sometimes it's just an assistant or an assistant to an assistant stage manager, depending on if it's a Broadway show. And that way, technically, you have allowed everyone to audition for your play. But then you have a cutting down to the people who are just fit the mold of the characters you're looking for. Yes? And so again, that can be, oftentimes it's a sight thing. You'll have the actor walk in, give the resume to the stage manager. The stage manager looks at them and says, your type, you're perfect for this type. They'll send them a callback for the day you're gonna call back for that character. And sometimes the callback is in the room right next door, right? But if they don't feel you're right for any of the characters in the play, they'll accept the resume, say thank you very much, and they say, we'll contact you when we've cast, or if we need you, right? Once you've put yourself up for auditions, typically you can be called for auditions. I've had people who didn't make any callbacks who suddenly got cast in the show just because people were like, well, why didn't we look at this guy? Well, I didn't think they looked experienced enough based on the resume, because again, it gets the stage manager, but then you get the choreographer go, oh, this person's got great roles, whatever. So again, they will be looked at, but you just don't meet those people on the cattle call. It's just swift, it's just a way of hoarding cattle, getting them through the door, right? But once you get into the audition themselves, if you're doing monologues, well, let's talk about the space itself. But once you've decided what type of auditions you're going to have, as a stage manager, you need to know how much room you're going to need and where you're going to do these. Oftentimes the theater's available, great, you do it in the theater. You will need to set out a little board or something on the seats so the director has a surface to write on. Maybe give them a lamp that clamps on so they can see out there. Yes? Whatever preparation you need to take to make sure the director has what they need, a table to put drinks on, that sort of thing, because they're going to be there for 5 hours. So having a little bottle of water out there for them to drink, that sort of stuff. Sometimes they're going to have assistant directors that are sitting behind them, producers that are sitting with them. How many people are sitting out there? Do they all need desks? Do they all need tables? All that needs to be taken care of ahead of time. Then, and if you've got monologues, the stage manager will typically be on stage and announce the actor. Now number 96, Cody Robertson. Cody will come out there and do their monologue, whatever it is. If you have a song as a part of this, 16 bars is typical. As an actor, make sure you can sing the 16 bars you have prepared. It doesn't necessarily have to be a difficult part of the song. It is oftentimes very hard in 16 bars to hit the high C. Now, once you've sung, the director may say, can you hit a high C? And they'll have the piano player play a scale and take you up to the high C. But that's different than having to hit the high C on command in a very nervous situation while you're singing. I would encourage you to sing something that you're very familiar with, that you can sing in your sleep, literally in your sleep. You wake up in the morning singing this song, sing that song because you sing it well. then have the director find out the information they need about the high note or the low note that you have, right? But don't necessarily think just because you're singing Maria and Maria has that high E, that you gotta go out there and prove your high E, right? Get cast first and then let them know that you get the high E, you've gotta adapt, transpose this thing. It wouldn't be the first time it had to be done, trust me. Anyway, so as a stage manager, you need to know, do we need an accompanist? Do we need a CD player for somebody to bring a CD to sing with? What type of backup information? Are there dance auditions? Do we need to have towels? Do we need to have a mop to mop the stage every once in a while to clean it off so the dancers aren't falling on their butts? Do we need to have rosin bags? Places for the dancers to put the rosin is something that gives you a little stickiness to your feet. We need a couple of rosin boxes back there to help the dancers. Whatever you need for the auditions, you need to make sure those are discussed well ahead of time, and prepared well ahead of time, so you're not running around like a chicken with your head cut off right at the beginning of auditions looking for batteries for the clip light. Because again, that is just something that's going to happen. They're going to turn the clip light on, it doesn't work. Oh my God, we need batteries. And of course, you just ran out of batteries yesterday. So it's better to have gone through the motions, turned everything on, tried everything. Do things break? Sure. Do things blow up? Sure. Blow out. Blow up, yes. Do strings break on piano? Sure, but have it tuned, right? Whatever you're going to need for that audition, make sure it's done well ahead of time, okay? So get the space ready. Do you need a place for the actors to congregate before they come to the theater to audition? Is there a green room? Is there a separate room for them to warm up, especially if you have singers and dancers? They're going to need a warm-up piano. They're going to need a warm-up place, a bar to warm up on, right? And so you may need alternative spaces for those type of things. Usually, if you're having a singer audition, it's going to be a separate audition from the acting audition. If you're having a dancing audition, it's going to be a separate audition from the singing audition. But sometimes, depending on the theater and the size of the theater and the amount of time they have, it's all in one, right? I know many a theater that's gone to New York to cast over a weekend, and they're all in one. You walk in, you sing, you dance, you act, you're done. Here's a combination, dun, 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 go. And so, again, you can do all at once. It can be separate things, but at any rate, the stage manager should be in contact with the director. Those are the two people that are talking to coordinate those things. And then anybody you need to run back and forth should be an assistant that you have to go to the green room to get the next actor. If you're going to call one at a time, that's one thing. If you're going to call 10 at a time and just have people wait in the wings. If you're going to have everybody in the house and just call them to the stage, right? That's another way things can work. As a director, I encourage people to watch other people's auditions because I think it's a chance for you as an actor to learn not only what other actors are performing and how they are auditioning, but also for you to see how a director and a stage manager work together to coordinate together to cast the show. And again, if you've watched my auditions and then you see my cast, hopefully you will understand the process that I have gone through to cast the show. So again, it's all about learning in my experience. Trust me, at SCTC, it's not about learning, it's about pumping you through, right? And I know this is hard to understand, but quality, when you're seeing 1,000 people, just work with me here, you're seeing 1,000 people, your mind, trust me, becomes numb. And to have somebody walk on stage and have you wake up and say, oh my God, it is so easy to see the diamonds, especially when all you got is rough. Does that make sense? So as an actor, you want to do something that makes you stick out, right? Whether it be, well, I'm not going to make suggestions. I'll let you and Neil David or whoever work with those sort of things. But there are ways, and I'm sure you all know, I would not make clumsy your choice. There's a way to step out clumsily, and that's also noticeable. It's very easy to see the high end, it's very easy to see the low end. When you've got 750 people who are here, seeing the 25 people who are here and the 25 people who are here is so easy. And people are like, how do they do it? And I'm like, I'm telling you, it's the easiest thing in the world. When you've only got 25 people, sometimes it's tough to see the variety. There's a variety, but it's tough to see because you don't know what 5 is, you don't know what normal is. When you see 1,000 people, normal becomes very obvious. It's a bell curve, right? Any bell curve, half of them are the bell. Then you got these 10 over here and these 10 over here. The standouts one way or the other, right? You want to be a standout on the good side, right? All right, so you've got your auditions. You've got whatever scenes or sides that are copied. You got the space reserved. Do you need a picture and resume? Most people are gonna say yes. But especially nowadays, sometimes those are video. I mean, they're not printed. I would always have a copy as an actor printed to present. A lot of times people have the photo on the back side of the resume. That is fine. I would encourage it because it's harder to lose that way. I know it doesn't make any sense that way, but if you staple one gets ripped off, you've lost the resume. Now you've got this picture. You go, who is this person, right? So I would just print them on the back. Talk about what type. We need accompanist, callback information. Well, let's talk, before we go about callback, let's, Cody, go ahead and scan. I'm gonna give you a copy of the audition form. Some things you want on the audition form. Obviously the contact information, name, address, age, height. Now, people can lie. People do lie. But you still want to at least get an idea of what they think their age is, what they think their height is, what they think their hair color is. I mean, obviously those things can change. Now, if it's a musical and you put vocal part, I would just put vocal range. I wouldn't even put vocal part, I'd put vocal range. And people who are singers are gonna know what their vocal range is. Trust me, if you're a singer, somebody has told you what your vocal range is. If you've ever had any classes, if you've never had classes singing, I don't care how good a singer you are, if you have not been trained as a singer, you're not a singer. There's just a difference between people who have been trained in singing and people who can carry a tune. If you can carry a tune, you don't know what your vocal range is. I don't know what my vocal range is. I can carry a tune, but I would not be cast in any way in any kind of major musical who had to sing by anyone I know of. But having those things on your audition form, if you're under 18, you need a parent's consent, obviously most times. You need some sort of phone number, contact list, best time to call, roles you're interested in. You know what, that can be enlightening. Are you interested in any role? Is there any role you wouldn't do, might be a better way to put it. Because sometimes actors can be, I have always said to myself and to my students, say yes to everything, every opportunity you get. Because for those who've been in shows, you know this, people get sick. Casts change. Just because you're not cast in the role you want to begin the play, doesn't mean you're not gonna end up there by the time the show's on the thing. But if you said, no, I'm not gonna do this part, and then that's the only part that's available for you, you're not in the cast. And then when the person gets sick and you need to go up, they're gonna hire somebody who's already there and not you. So why limit yourself? Anyway, but as a person who's a director, if you don't wanna be a part, tell me you don't wanna be a part. Well, great, I won't cast you in that. Brilliant. Do you have any conflicts? Obviously, that's a big thing. Obviously, knowing rehearsal schedule and having a copy of the rehearsal schedule to go along with the audition form is a very helpful thing for people who are auditioning. If you're for advertising purposes, it's nice to know where you heard about the auditions. Again, Cody's got you a little copy of the audition form there. Hopefully you can see all that just as an example of what an audition form can look like. And again, you may add specific things. Do you smoke? Is an excellent question. Obviously nowadays there are a lot of ways around smoking on stage, but still, I'm gonna tell you in 6 weeks, there's no way to train a person to hold a cigarette the way a person holds a cigarette who has smoked their whole life. It takes too much time, too much energy to learn. People who smoke hold cigarettes certain ways. People who don't smoke don't look like they hold cigarettes right. So for instance, that might be an example of something you might ask. The callbacks. A lot of times callbacks, especially if you've auditioned in monologues, the callbacks will be cold readings. And again, I would still, before the callbacks, have posted the sides so that people can prepare that for the same reason we talked about earlier. But have a time and place, all the things we talked about before for the callbacks. If you don't need them, it's easy not to call those people and just cast them. But I would always plan to have a callback around, even if you had cold readings the first time, that way, because especially, let's say you have 2 days of cold readings, there may be somebody from the second day that you want to see how they read with the person from the first day, and it's better to call them back together and see, rather than cast them and then learn that for some reason they're not cohesive. So it's always best to see everybody before you cast, and sometimes that takes a callback just because of the number of people involved, yes? Notes on audition forms. During the course of auditions, directors, choreographers, musical directors, stage managers often will have codes. I'll tell you my code. My code is the first person who auditions that I can cast in a role, I put a check by. I'll say, let's say Willie Loman. Willie Loman, I'll put one check by. Yes? And then the second person who auditions who I think can do that role, if they are on par with that, I'll put a check. If they're better, I'll put a plus, check plus. If the first person was better than the second person, but the second person could do it, I'll put a check by the second person and a plus by the first person. Now, because there may be eventually 10 people who could do it, you might have one that has 5 pluses, one that has 4 pluses, 3 that have 3 pluses, 2 that have 2 pluses. I call, obviously, the first one with 5 pluses, I call first, but suddenly they've got a wedding the second weekend of the show that we forgot to tell you about. It happens. Oh, I can't do the whole run because of this. Oh, I can't be in the second week of rehearsal because of this. Suddenly, the 4-star person wasn't that much worse than the 5-star person, and the 4-star person could do it every single time. Welcome to the 4-star person. Yes, and let's say you cast the 5-star person and a weekend they get sick. Welcome to the 4-star person. Maybe you cast 4-star person as Charlie, another character in the play, and then they can step up because that way you already know they're committed to the play. Does that make sense? So that may be a reason to get cast in the play, is so that you're back up to the person who's the lead. And not a dumb way of doing it. That's a very smart way of casting the show, is to have your understudies already in the play somehow involved, right? And then all you have to call and find somebody to do is to be Stanley the State guy, as opposed to find somebody who has to be Willie Loman, because you already got Willie Loman in the cast, right? Back there. And then we're the 4-star guys, the 4th and 5-star guy, yes? But that's because that way if you get my audition form a week later or a month later, and trust me, people do. People find their audition forms. They'll go into the office and dig through stuff just to see what the notes are. And they see check plus. Well, unless they have all the information, that sounds good. Why did I get cast? I was check plus. And even if it has nothing there, they don't know my code. I mean, you do, because I just told it to you. One of the things that people often do, you've heard in chorus line, they say dance 10, looks 3. They have a 1 to 10 scale. That's so dance 10, great dancer, looks 3. Why did I get cast? Because it looks 3. Found myself a fancy pair, tied up my derriere. That ain't it, kid. That ain't it, kid. You may sing the whole song. Anyway, so sometimes you don't want to code that's too easy to break, because it can devastate people. Yes. Now, if I would call it a post-mortem. If you're in an actor training program or if you're involved in college, it often is nice after the auditions to have a post-mortem where you sit down with the people, director, people who cast the show, and say, all right, why didn't I get cast? Well, you stuttered, you slouched, your dress didn't fit well, whatever. I don't know. Why didn't you get cast? 3 people were better than you. How were they better? Well, they were the right size, shape, whatever. And again, sometimes it's personal choice. The director didn't choose you. That's not your fault, right? They didn't see it as a large, handsome, gregarious. Anyway, so once you have made the callbacks, the next thing, of course, is the casting. Now, I would encourage directors to have a supplicant call to offer roles. Now, what the hell does that mean? Do not call and ask them to be in the role, because they'll be embarrassed sometimes to tell you their problems, and they're going to be excited to be cast. So they're going to say yes, and then 2 weeks later they'll tell you the problems. If you have the stage manager call and cast the show, or someone that is not connected to the artistic wing of the show, they can often be more honest about, well, I've got another offer. What should I do? Well, when will you know about this other offer? I'll find out tomorrow morning. All right, especially at large auditions, that's customary. If you've been offered a role in the chorus, for instance, and you've been offered a lead role at another theater, but you're deciding, one doesn't pay enough and you're trying to negotiate contracts, it is not unheard of for actors to ask for a little time to think about it. Yes? And so sometimes as you cast the show, you need that actor to be real with you, and it's easier to be real with a stage manager than it is to say no to you as a director. So have a supplicant call, and if they're excited and accept the role, great. Then you can call and congratulate them. Say, I'm so happy, call them the next morning, whenever it is. I would always, once the cast is formed, I would send out an email, I personally send out an email saying, here's the cast list to everyone who auditioned, even the people who didn't get cast, with a note saying, thank you so much for everyone who did audition, here's the cast. Please audition for us again in the future, because you never know. And that way they know they didn't get cast, and you've made a contact to them, so in case somebody in the cast has to drop out, when you call back and say, I know you didn't get cast, this person had to drop out, would you be interested? They can have whatever reaction they're gonna know, but at least they're not wondering for 2 weeks whether they got cast or not, something they hear from third sources that they get cast. Yes. All right. The precasting. Here's a warning about precasting. Don't do it. The worst mistakes in plays that I've ever been involved in have almost always included somebody being precast in a show. Now, having said that, have I done it? Yeah. We did a production of Measure for Measure a couple years ago, and the lead actors in the show, the two lead actors, I precast, because that was one of the reasons why we did the show, was because I wanted to use these particular actors and they wanted to do that particular show. And it worked great, but I also trusted those actors that they were not going to fail me. Now, the reason why I say this is because even though, for instance, again, I'm not going to say names because I don't want to embarrass people, but there have been instances where people who I've worked with often, who I considered fantastic people, when they got precast in a show, were just horrendous to work with. There's something about being precast in a show that gives actors an attitude, like you needed me so bad, you couldn't do the show without me, so I'm going to ask for all these special requests and not show up at rehearsal on time. What are you going to do? Not fire me? Because they got precast. I have even, I know this sounds like a miracle, but I've even been precast. I had a director call me and say, I want you to play the governor in Bessel Whorehouse in Texas. And I said, I will certainly come and audition for you to be that role, but you're gonna see what I look like and sound like and dance like before you cast me in the show. I'm not gonna get precast and then suddenly show up at rehearsal, and have you go, oh my God, he's not exactly what I remembered him to be. Now, I auditioned, I got the role, and that was great. And it was one of the best times of my life in a show. But I insisted myself that I auditioned so that he knew what he was getting himself into, because I didn't want to walk through the door and then have him go, oh, wow, you can't really dance, can you? Because, the governor has a little dance, does a little two-step, side step. Anyway, but I would warn you against precasting. Now, having said that, should you have an idea of people that could do the role? Sure, that's natural. Whenever you're casting a show, whenever you're thinking about doing a show, you sort of figure out, well, this person would be good in that. I mean, for instance, there's a show I'm thinking about in the future doing that is one of my favorite shows, and we just sort of have actors around right now who will be great in it. Have I precast them? No. Are we going to do the show? I'm going to announce it as the show we're going to do next year. Whenever I announce that, you're going to have to be in mystery now. Mike, what show are we going to do? And for those of you who watch this in the future, you'll look back and say, what show did they do? I wonder what it was. That sort of guides my selection of shows. And we'll talk one day about, if you have the opportunity to select shows, how you go about doing that. Now, having said that, let me give you 2 seconds on how we choose shows. We try and have a variety of shows, comedy, drama, mystery, whatever, and a variety of time periods. If we have something old, we'll want something new. If we have something, if we're doing Much Ado About Nothing, we might have something more modern or a new play. so that actors can get accustomed to dealing with language the way Shakespeare dealt with language, but also dealing with language in modern sense. Having shows that are not American, having a foreign show, having we need a variety of shows the way we look to populate our season. Yes, with knowledge that, and Val will tell you, she likes to have smaller casts. I tend to like to have larger casts. I don't know, I'll rue the day I said that, but I tend to have 40 people come to audition, and when I have a cast of 20, I get to cast half of them. If I found in the past when I have a cast of 5 and I have 40 people show up, it really is hard to cast the show, because there's 10 people who could do the show. I could cast it twice, 3 times over, right? But I've got to say no to all those people. I'd rather say yes to as many people who show up. Now, like I said, with Midsummer Night's Dream, I need 18 people. I'll probably have 6 auditions, but we'll get to there when we get to there. But you're taking a chance. Do I have that number of people? Well, I think I have that number of people in the community. If nobody else from AUM showed up, I could make some calls, and I think people will be very happy. Especially since nobody's done a show in 6 months or 9 months or whatever it is. I think I can catch it pretty easy. But we'll see. First of all, we're going to let AUM students do it. All right, so there's your warning about that. Talking a little bit about looking at portfolios or hiring people. Oftentimes, you're going to be asked to hire assistant stage managers, to hire crew members, to hire lighting designers, sound designers, and you're going to need to look at portfolios or look at resumes. Now, resumes are very interesting things to look at because they don't show potential, they just show where a person has been. So let me give you a couple of clues. If a person has never, ever worked at the same theater twice, that's a warning sign. If a person has done a variety of things but nothing twice, that's a warning sign. In other words, if they did set on one show, painted scenery, they did sound on one show, they acted in one show, but nothing consistent, there's no consistency, those are just people who haven't found their niche. Now, does that mean their niche is not assistant stage manager? No. But it's just things I'm trying to have little sparks go on. When you're looking at somebody's portfolio, you want to look for two things. Process, yes, and you want to see that where their design is what it looked like in performance. Those are the two things you're looking for. How much do they lie? Every drawing is a lie, yes? Every time you do a sketch, every time you do a rendering, every time whether it's computer generated or whether it's hand drawn, it's a lie. It is. You want to have people who lie the least. When you see a picture and then you see the picture of the show, they want to resemble one another in some vein. Now, having said that, people can also draw a set or draw a costume or draw a lighting design after the show. So if it looks too identical, that's a sign that they may have drawn it after, because sketches are merely leaping off points for the design process. And oftentimes, I would say invariably, things change. And so if you see a sketch and then you can look at the reality and there's a extra door or there's a extra, a little something different in the way the tassels lay or whatever, that may have probably was a sketch that was done before the actual garment. If you look at the sketch and everything is exactly the way it is in reality, that person drew that after they built the costume. And that doesn't tell you anything about the process. So again, process and results. Those are the things you're looking at in a portfolio. And don't be fooled by nice art, because nice art is beautiful. It's beautiful. It's, wow, that's beautiful painting. Does that mean they can design? It means they can draw. It means they can paint. Doesn't mean they can design, right? So having those things to read, like concept statements, can be very telling as to how these people think. Do you like the way they think? Do you understand the way they think? Some people, I've had many students who I didn't understand a word of what they were saying, but produced some great stuff. I'm like, good luck getting hired. I don't know, I wouldn't hire you. But it was great stuff. And when people call and say, can they design? I'm like, absolutely. They just are a little out in left field, or vice versa. All right, and then casting agents, the last thing. Just give a big warning. One of the things about theater, casting agents, especially in film and television, can be, they're the only way to get cast. You've got to have a casting agent to get in film. Television, not so much, not as much, but they certainly are helpful, especially once you've started in the industry and you're trying to find new jobs and go from place to place. But, here's the big but. Casting agents are also rife with people who are shysters, who are there really to charge you $750 for headshots, who are there to find any way they can to get $1 out of your pocket based on the fact that you can be easily led by pictures and stories of people they've gotten cast, and they may well have gotten those people cast. You know, Octavia Spencer went to here with one of my first students. How many other Oscar winners have I? Well, you know, the rest of you. But a casting agent can mislead and or be not in it for the reasons that you're in it. So let me just give you a big, if they're in the Yellow Pages, and I know that's a bad thing to say, but if they have a history, the Better Business Bureau, if they're a member of them, that sort of thing, there are people that are just fly-by-nights, and there are people that have been there in the community for a while. People that have been there for a while, you know, find other people who've worked with them, find other references, great. Call Better Business Bureau and say, are these people legit? But there are also people that just, you know, fly into the community, they hear there's a movie being cast, they use that fact to get people to, you know, pay $750 for a headshot. So just be wary of casting agents. Cool. All right, so hopefully that is a little bit of understanding about how the auditions work. Again, once you get a cast and get people to commit to the cast, we'll start talking about the first rehearsal next class period. All right, we'll see you then.